Welcome to the Mike White Podcast, where I, Mike White, share my conversations and book reviews through my journey to learn all that goes on in this amazing world. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. All right, welcome to episode 27 of the Mike White Podcast. Today I'm honored to be joined on the pod with a fitness, health, and weight loss expert, a modern day Renaissance man, and just someone that's made a huge impact on my quality of life for the better, Mr. Vinnie Tortorich. Vinnie, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Mike, I tell you, I need to, with that introduction, I need to get you just to follow me around. And people say, so tell me about yourself. Mike, go on.
Oh, well,
he's a Renaissance man. The guy's great.
Well, I will go on because you've done over 2,300 podcasts. You've made 3 documentaries. You have your book, Fitness Confidential. You also have your ebook, PDF, where you've created the no sugar, no grain lifestyle and NSNG, and you outline exactly what people should be eating, how they should be thinking about things, the common myths. You just have so much content on Twitter, on Instagram. What drives you to keep educating people and keep creating all this? You have an insane motor.
Boredom. I get bored easily. And, I come from a long line of peasant Italian, people, work ethic. And that's all I can say about it. People, I have friends, go, oh, you're 60 now, aren't you going to slow down? It's like, I'm trying to figure out how to speed up even more because, Mike, my parents lived, they were the first generation. My parents are now in their 80s. They were part of the first generation where it was like, you get a job, you work for the man, and then the man, your work, give the man 30 years of your life, like a prison sentence. And then the man will take care of you in the form of a pension for the rest of your life. And growing up, look, I'm just younger than the hippies, but I used to look up to the hippie dippy people. It was like, they were like, hey man, free love, free this, just live free. Now they went off in a weird direction, but I did take a piece of their lesson, hey, I could just work for myself and be free. And my parents looked around, they went, well, who's going to pay you when you stop working? And my answer was, I'm not going to stop working. Look at me, Mike. Do I look like a country club guy?
You're working.
Yeah, no, I'm a working guy. Do I look like a guy? I was talking about, I'm going to name drop here. I was talking to Adam Carolla on his show about it. It was a little over a year ago. And we were talking, I started building this kayak. And he said, what made you start building the kayak? And I said, well, I was watching an old movie from the 80s, Rob Lowe and, all the stuff. And Rob Lowe was driving. I was on my spinner. I was 2 feet from where I'm sitting right now. I was on my spinner watching that television you can see in the mirror. And Rob Lowe was driving this like 1981 or 82 Porsche Carrera. And I thought, man, back then that was my dream, right? That's the dream. And I looked around while I was on my spinner and I said, you know what? I can probably afford that dream now, especially if I buy one that's kind of junked up. And, I had this whole romantic thing going on in my head while I'm watching Rob Lowe in the Porsche. It's like, I could probably find one for cheap, that's like a garage find. And I can strip it down. It'll be a project. So what if it takes me 10 years, right?
Yep.
At the end of it, I'll have this shiny car that reminds me of when I was in college and all this good stuff and things I couldn't afford. And now I can build it and say, I built this thing up and the whole thing. And I literally looked into it. I went online and started, what would a used 1982 Porsche Carrera car? And, really beat up, and you could get them, right? I was like, wow, that's within my budget, and I could get it to a guy, and I could do, and I started thinking about it. And then I thought, this is not good. because I'm not a Porsche guy. I came from a working class existence. Porsche guys belong to country clubs. I don't belong to a country club. I don't have anything fancy. This is not going to fit me. As much as I thought I wanted that my entire life, I didn't want it. And then I thought to myself, well, come up with a project, Vin. What do you really, really, really want to do? And literally one day later, I was watching a movie called, I like to watch a lot of older movies. Well, this is not that old. It was Must Love Dogs. It was, do you know this movie?
No, I've never seen it.
I was watching it because the actress, I can't think of her name. She is Lane. I want to say Jessica Lane, but what's her name? Really cute girl, and it's like, oh, she's hot. I'm going to watch this movie. And Diane Lane.
Diane Lane.
Yeah, and I'm watching it, and Cusack is in the movie, and it's a rom-com, right? It's a rom-com. And in the rom-com, John Cusack is building these wooden boats. This is literally one day after I decided I wasn't going to build a Porsche. And I said, that my whole life, I've always said to myself, one day I'm going to build a wooden boat. I didn't know what it was. Maybe a canoe, maybe a rowing boat, whatever. One day. And I just thought about it and went, today is that day. And it was the end of the year. It was end of 2021. And I said, okay, that's my New Year's resolution. I must start building this boat in January. I had no other plans. Yep. I just said that in January, I must buy wood. I didn't even know what the thing was. You understand? I made a decree that before the last day of January, this is going to happen.
Yep.
And just April 1st, 3 days ago, I finished the boat. If you go to my Instagram, you'll see pictures of a finished boat.
It's beautiful.
Oh, you've seen it.
Oh, the craftsmanship is unmatched. Like, you didn't just build a boat, you built a beautiful boat, and all the detail you went into is very meticulous. And I was going to ask you if you got to take it out yesterday, because you were saying
I did
taking it out to the water.
Yeah. I took it out. I finished on Saturday. On Sunday, it was in the water and we paddled around. I'm going to put a little video of that up. I think we may have already, well, I did 2 videos. I'm going to do one for YouTube and one for Instagram. But by the way, that boat wouldn't have looked like that if I hadn't had the help of one of the best boat builders on the planet, this guy, Joey Schott, who allowed me to go into his shop. You know, he lived 100 miles from here. So every Saturday, 42 Saturdays, I went to his shop. I put 320 hours into it. Joey was hands-on with me because there's no way you build that. That's a museum quality boat. The finish looks like a fine piano. You don't get that your first time out. So let me be very clear.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of help, but I was there hands-on 320 hours to get to what that boat is. But now I know how to do something. So I'm saying this, and your crowd is going to go, what does this have to do with health and fitness? Everything. It has everything to do, because health and fitness is the same thing. You make a decree, you decide you're going to do it, and then you just do it.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to go off, but there you have it. Sorry.
No, because nowadays everyone is looking for the quick way to lose weight. They have all the pills out there. They're even talking about giving young kids weight loss surgery when they're young, and no one is looking at the long-term process of diet and exercise type thing. And I think what you're doing and your approach with NSNG is one of the few voices out there that promotes that. And I don't know if you have any hope for the culture that it will shift, or what your outlook for that is in the years to come.
I hope more people start doing what I'm doing. I feel like I'm on the dance floor by myself dancing, and I look like Elaine from Seinfeld, just kind of out there wiggling around and nobody's paying attention. I feel that way, but then when I talk to other people like Nina Teicholz and Gary Taubes, they feel the same way. We've all been in this boat for a long time. There is no other way. It's not easy. And, even when I wrote Fitness Confidential, the book, the aforementioned book, all the book companies were very interested in it. When I say all the book companies, the big ones, Simon & Schuster, HarperCollins, all the big players, they were very interested in Fitness Confidential. And for one thing, they didn't want it to be called Fitness Confidential. And they wanted me to put stuff on the cover of the book, how to lose 10 pounds in 5 days and how to lose 100 pounds. They wanted me to put lies on the cover, lies on the back. And they wanted me to they all said, we love the book, but we want you to do one chapter where you put like the secret, like the big secret as to how to lose weight. And I went, I could do that. So I sat down and wrote that chapter. And I sent it in, and they came back to him and they said, no, not like that. You said the secret is hard work, diet, exercise, hard work. I went, yeah, well, you said you wanted to see it. That's the secret. And they said, no. We want, like if you take this amino acid, or tell them how you help the celebrities get, you talk about celebrities in your book, you get the weight off of them really fast. Talk about that, but talk about the special, like the secrets nobody else knows about. I went, well, there are no secrets. You're talking about, people think celebrities are a bunch of wusses, and they're not. Yeah. Right? These are type A+ personality people who literally, they kick ass day in and day out. If you tell them that they need to eat cat crap for a month, they will do it. They will do whatever they have to do to lose weight. And when you walk in and say, okay, big celebrity that's going to be in a movie, this is what you have to do. They just go, okay, let's get to work, roll up their sleeves. They're not pampered little wusses the way we think they are. Right. Yeah. I live that lifestyle. My wife is a celebrity. She's an actress. And people think, we would go to red carpet events, and we would be arguing with her daughter, get your homework done and make sure you clean your room and all that. And then we would throw on the monkey suits, as I like to call them, the costumes, and usually all the way to these premieres, right? Daughter's usually in a car with us, Mom, I want to do something. And then you get out of the car and the cameras are there, and you act like, you're special for 5 minutes. And then you walk into the theater and you watch a movie. People think that you live like that all the time. No, you're arguing about homework up until that moment when you get out of the car and pretend. It's all pretend, right? Yep. But that's what the internet is. Look at Instagram. Very few people are doing what I'm doing on Instagram. They're all pretending they look a certain way. They're doctoring photos. They're doing whatever. And I personally, I just don't think it's right. Do you?
No. And the way you say that these celebrities, they have the incredible work ethic. And I think what you're putting out there too is not just for the celebrities, not just for the people that can power through, but eating that NSNG, the natural food approach, just creates, it's so much easier once you get fat adapted and you're eating foods you really enjoy, to have sustained weight loss and just a better quality of life as a whole. And I just don't understand how more people aren't saying the same message that you are.
Well, maybe it's because people, like I said, they want that secret, that tell me that one thing that no one else knows. I mean, people will say to me, hey, I've been doing your NSNG, which for your audience, it means no sugars, no grains approach. It's low carb. And they'll go, okay, I'm doing that and that's working fine. Now I'm going to start doing, intermittent fasting. What do you think about that? And I go, well, why are you going to do that? I just want to see if I can make it move faster. And some people say, well, I did that for a while and it worked. Now I'm going to do OMAD, 1 meal a day. What do you think about that? It's like, well, the system wasn't broken to begin with. when you started cutting out carbs? Why are you now doing everything? That's how Jimi Hendrix killed himself, right? Just a little drugs wasn't enough, and look, and that's what made Jimi Hendrix great, right? He was the best guitar player on the planet. He did everything to 11, as they say. Yeah. And that's what killed him, So why not just do what works and keep doing it?
Oh, definitely. And I'm battling my buddy. So we decided to qualify for the Boston Marathon, and he's a D1 cross country runner back in the day. So he made a whole plan of running plan for us. And then his fitness or his health plan, he's like, all right, we're going to need to be eating, small meals throughout the day. We need to get our complex carbs in. And I'm over here. I mean, I've listened to you for over, 8 years. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I can do this without sugars and grains. So I'm going to, that's my goal, is to run this marathon NSNG style. I just wondering if you think that's doable or not.
Well, my wife ran Boston. She ran Boston, and she was in SNG, but I'm trying to remember what year. It was the year before the bombing, that year right before the bombing.
Oh, wow.
And she qualified the next year too, eating low carb. And, we were getting ready to go. It's like, do I sign up? Do I not? And I was like, honey, if you want to, it's an expensive ass weekend just to go run a marathon in Boston. And she goes, you're right. Because there was some other ultra events coming up. And by the way, she's done ultras completely low carb.
Wow.
And if you want to, I don't know when you're putting this out, but Dr. Tim Noakes is going to be on my show again. I want to say this Friday is going to be this coming Friday for you. I'm telling this to you.
Okay.
April, what is it?
7th.
Okay.
7th or 8th, I think.
Yeah, something like it. A couple of days before Easter. And they've done the study. They took elite athletes and they were able to get them deep into zone 3, and somewhere like at 86% of their aerobic capacity in total, low carb, no sugar whatsoever, and got them to, it was always said, oh, past zone 2, you can't do it. Now they're proving it. See, I've been proving it with myself for a long time, even though I train in zone 2. Hell, when I'm up doing Mont Blanc and some of this other stuff, when I'm on my Concept 2 for 90 minutes, Concept 2 for your audience is a rowing machine. You're working 80% of all of the muscles in your body. I'm going to brag for a second, right? I'm always doing that in zone 2. And, I go long because I'll put on a movie or something and just go long.
Nice.
90 minutes, sometimes 2 hours. And a buddy of mine said to me, he was like, hey, our friend Dan is 7th in the world in the 2000 meter, which is kind of like the big test. That's kind of, So I was like, oh, what was his time? And he told me, I can't remember what it is, but it's like 7 minutes and something seconds. And I went, huh. And Dan trains really hard. Dan is really good. And he was like 7th in the world that year. And I think Dan had been as low as 3rd in the world. He really goes at it with this rowing thing. I never do. I just use it to watch television. I call it my couch. So I came home. I didn't even warm up. I warmed up for like 2 or 3 minutes. I was in street clothes. And I said, okay, let me just yank on this thing really hard and see how long it takes me to do 2,000 meters. And it turns out, without practicing or anything else, of course, I was, after like the first minute and a half, I was in zone 4, edging onto zone 5, meaning beyond zone. I finished like right behind Dan, 8th in the world. Jeez. Without ever training for this. Right? And I told my buddy Don, I said, if I train for this for 5 minutes, I can probably finish top 3 in the world because, and that's just, I just do zone 2 all the time, just to stay in really good shape. Right. And now we've gone off into the weeds. I don't mean to bore your audience or anything, but.
No. So I was wondering about that because you did a bunch of those races back in the day, a lot of cycling races.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you still have that competitive itch to get back out there?
In certain ways, I do. I don't want to road cycle anymore at all. It's too dangerous. People are on phones while they're driving, and so many. I had people I knew close to me got hit and killed, and hit and hospitalized, and all kinds of stuff. A lot of ultra cyclists were just getting killed. The best ultra cyclists in the world died on a training ride, and you start looking, and it's all because of careless people.
Yeah.
With self texting and everything. So I refuse to get on the road anymore on a bicycle. But now these gravel events are around. So I've actually considered it, but I'm really enjoying doing other things, doing more glaciers and stuff like that. It's non-competitive stuff, but and I do compete. I'm a competitive skeet shooter. And
Nice.
I as a matter of fact, my first competition for this year is coming up on the 15th, and I am not ready for it. And it doesn't matter how good a shape, man. It's kind of like playing golf. If you don't get out there and swing some clubs, if you're not swinging that shotgun, you're not going to hit. So I'm hoping I do pretty well.
Yeah, it's not like you can have a skeet shooting range in your backyard or anything like that for most spots. It's not quick.
No, you got it. I was looking for a place big enough to where I can build my own range in my backyard, but we couldn't get internet service in those areas where I live now. And I need high upload and download speeds because I send huge files every day.
Yep.
So there was no way to do that. So, but my home course is 12 minutes from my house. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I get to practice a lot.
No LA traffic.
Yeah. That was a big problem when I was shooting in LA. It's like, it was an hour, it should be 20 minutes, but the freeways are always back. It was always like an hour and 20 minutes.
Jeez.
Just to go get some practice in. So you couldn't practice that often in LA.
Yeah. And I was wondering for these ultra events that your wife does, and for fuel during the race, because those are going multiple hours. I want to try doing it with the ultra salt and your ultra fat and see how my body reacts to that, because I haven't really tried it out yet. I mean, if I did a 17 miler, I think was the longest. I had some olives, but I don't know what your take is there for during the race.
You should be able to make it on just eating fat, whether it's my product or coconut oil or olive oil or something. Look, you got to remember, when people were doing marathons back in the 70s, nobody was eating goo every mile. No one had a little hydration pack, nothing. People, the most they would do is run past the station and splash some Gatorade in their face or grab a half of an orange or, something like that. But people used to run full marathons with nothing, just the energy they started with. So it's been done over and over and over where people have used my products. There were these, I don't know if you know this story, but the Marathon des Sables, are you familiar with it?
Des Sables? No, yeah. Marathon des Sables.
Yeah, it's, I think most people pronounce it des Sables. It's in the Sahara Desert, and it goes off. It's each day is at least a marathon. It's like 5 or 6 days. The only thing they supply to you out there is water. You have to bring all of the food in a backpack that you're going to have while you go across the Sahara Desert for I don't know if it's 5, 6, or 7 days, but one of the hardest days is one of the shortest days because you're climbing over sand dunes the entire time. And you have to be just a fit SOB to do this. I've had friends who've completed it. Well, there was this team of special force guys from Italy, and they got to the starting line, and these guys were equivalent to our SEAL Team 6 guys, right? These are
best of the best.
Yeah. And there's a rule where your backpack has to weigh a certain amount, 15, 18 pounds or something like that. So all the food you're going to eat the entire time is in that backpack, right? Most people just fill it up with sugary stuff. They're just eating crap because they're not eating anything on the course other than water. Well, these guys came in and their packs were way light. And they said, well, we're going to have to either add weight or you guys can add more food, but we don't let people go out there where they're going to starve to death. And they said, we have all the calories we need. We've figured out our calories. And they said, well, there's no way you have enough food. What they had was olive oil, just vials of olive oil and electrolytes. They were fat adapted, and they planned on and did finish the race just using fat as fuel. I've done it. I've done Mont Blanc on nothing but fat.
Yeah.
I did Grand Paradiso on nothing but fat. I've done Mount Whitney so many times, nothing but either my product or just a jar of coconut oil in my backpack.
Do you feel the difference? Because I know back in the day, you weren't full NSNG when you would do some of those races, and then versus now, do you have a preference?
Yeah, I prefer now better. And here's why. When I first started crossing over, I was the first one that used to say, I don't feel like I have enough energy. I didn't feel like I had enough energy.
Mm-hmm.
And, because your body, I was still crossing over, but once I was doing that, that's why I'm hoping that you stay low carb for long enough so that your body really starts to learn how to use, ketones as energy, right? You want those butyrates to cross over and really use that for energy. I'm hoping that you get to that.
Mm-hmm.
Because the longer you do it, the easier. If you listen to Finney and Volek, they'll tell you, the longer you do it, the better it gets. So why do I like it better? Well, for a marathon, it wouldn't matter. You're done at your age. You probably have to do a 3 something, right, to even qualify.
Below 3, this like a 250. Well, that might be New York, but yeah, just under 3.
Yeah. So yeah, you're going to be moving hard, right?
Yeah.
You're going to be burning a lot of energy. So it might be hard for you to do it that way, right? You might need to take in some sugar. I always tell people I call it the sugar trickle, where, if you have small amounts of sugar coming in, just to let your brain know, oh, wait, there's sugar coming in, and you can continue on. That's one of the things I did early on. I figured out that if I put like a shot block, the shot blocks is just a little thing I would just put it in my mouth and getting ready to bonk, and my brain would go, oh, there's sugar again. This thing wasn't even in my gut yet. It was in my mouth, and your brain goes, oh, I have that drug again. We can rock and roll.
Nice.
So instead of spending money on shot blocks, I stopped at a liquor store and bought a roll of Lifesavers.
Okay.
And because there was a smaller amount of sugar, so if I started to bonk, I would just pop a Lifesaver in my mouth. It would bring me right back to where I was 30 seconds before that.
That's really easy to carry too.
Yeah, you can have them and you pop them in your mouth. It's, so you have ways to get around that, just getting that little trickle of sugar just to keep your brain going. But the longer you do it, the easier it gets. The problem I used to have in long distance events is if you're living on sugar, if you're taking like Hammer sustained energy or any kind of goo or gel or anything else, you get past 8, 9, 10 hours and your stomach just becomes bleh. Go to any triathlon, any Ironman triathlon, and swimming, no problem. Riding a bike 112 miles after the swim, no problem. By the time these people start getting into that 7, 8, 9 hour thing, and all they're doing is taking in Gatorade and goo and Cliff Bars, their stomach becomes sour. If you look at all of those race courses, when you get to the marathon, there's nothing but porta potties lined up.
Yeah.
Why is that? People are throwing up. They're crapping their brains out. And you talk to any amateur, and you ask them, "How was your thing?" "Oh, I was doing well. Halfway through the run, I got the runs, or I started throwing up." They just accept that as, "Oh, my body got tired." No, it's what you were eating beforehand that caused that. And as soon as I stopped doing that, I used to throw up on a bike. Nobody touched my bikes after those races until I came home and washed them, because I was always throwing up over the handlebars. Jeez. Does that sound like fun?
No.
No. Now you're throwing up and you're pedaling and you're throwing up. I mean, it's a horrible thing. You can't keep anything down. You're becoming dehydrated. It's just, it's horrible.
And then the other benefit is I don't know if my listeners know, I did a review of your podcast or your book for episode 5, but we went into how you got diagnosed with cancer while found out while you were on a bike ride and still finished the bike ride. And you battled that, you came through, and you learned that cancer is like feeds on sugar. So is that kind of still the main reason why you stay NSNG, just for that peace of mind?
Yeah. I got really lucky. I had leukemia, and after leukemia, I wanted to do a couple of more big bike races. So that year after leukemia, I wanted to prove to myself that I was alive again, that I was the same old me. And I went back and raced a couple of more years. But when I was off of the bike, I just adopted a no sugar, no grain attitude off of the bike. And for that year, I would only had sugar when I was on the bike, training.
Yeah.
But my doctor had told me, and this was before they were even talking about this. This was back in 2007. She said, because I was like, hey, we've kicked cancer in the butt here. I'm healthy again. And you're telling me it's going to come back within 5 years, because they just knocked this leukemia down into what they called a chronic amount of leukemia. And she goes, yeah. Every 5 years you'll have to get some more chemo. And I said, wow, I want to go as long as I can without getting chemo. How long does anyone? She goes, well, there's a couple of people that went 8-9 years, something like that. But expect to be on chemo between 4 and 6 years. And
Jeez.
my doctor was a friend of a friend, so she gave me a little extra time. And I said, Becky, what's the truth? I'm in LA. Half of my whacked out clients are telling me I need to be on a vegan diet, or I need to eat vegetarian, or I need to give up dairy and eggs. And some people are telling me I need to drink juice every day, especially wheatgrass and all this crap. I said, is there any science behind any of it? Because I was searching, I was looking for anything.
Yeah.
And she goes, no, it's all hogwash. There's no truth behind any of that. And I said, anything I could do, take extra vitamin E. I'm just like making up stuff. And she goes, you're the no sugars, no grains guy, right? I said, yeah. She goes, you follow your own advice? I said, no, not really. I'm a fit athlete, and she goes, do that. I said, do what? She goes, follow your own advice. I said, what? She goes, yeah, cancer is a closed cell. It doesn't feed on oxygen. It feeds on sugar. We now know that. Science has been trying to figure out how cancer feeds itself, and it's off of carbohydrates. So I was like, if I just starve the cancer, it can't grow. So if I wasn't on the bike, I wasn't eating sugar. And then I started figuring out, wait, I'm riding longer and longer before I even get hungry or lethargic or anything else. And that's when I started thinking, maybe Finney and Volek have a point. So it was just happenstance that I figured out that you can go just as long on fat as you can on sugar.
It's awesome, because that was an eye opener for me when I started going NSNG. And after like the first 2 weeks were rough, and after that, just the sustained energy throughout the day was a game changer. And I think it takes people to actually try it out to actually be convinced. Like you can preach all you want, but until you actually try it, you don't know what that feeling's like.
But Mike, there are athletes like yourself who I've tried to get them to cross over, and then they don't even make it through. They go, no, you don't understand, man. I can't even walk. I'm so tired. It's like, yeah. This is good. You got to keep going, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen like that. And you have a very difficult time convincing them.
You even say the first 2 weeks you can eat more probably than what you really need to. Do you still stick to that?
Oh, absolutely. I tell, especially morbid obese people who are used to trying to cut out calories just to magically lose weight. I'm telling them, eat with impunity as long as it's not any kind of carbohydrate.
Mm-hmm.
Just get through it, have extra salt, extra water, and once you get through all that, when you come out of the other side, then we can start looking at, calories and what they mean.
Because is it just shifting the energy source from those carbohydrates to the fat stores, and it just always takes people weeks, or I guess does it depend on the person how fast they shift?
It does, but everyone's about the same. Everyone goes through what we call the keto-flu, fairly around the same time. Depends on how metabolically broken they are. Usually the first 2 weeks you get through the whole keto-flu and everything, you start feeling better, but you're not really getting anywhere until you get to the 30-day mark. And Atkins, back when he was talking about it, they were talking about the Atkins induction period, and that was only 14 days because that got everybody through the keto-flu. Atkins should have been talking about, hey, you're going to, and as Finney and Volek would say, and Eric Westman, if you think you feel great at 30 days, wait till you get to 60 days. And if you think that felt great, wait till you get to 6 months. It just keeps getting better. I know it sounds like pie in the sky, but it's not. It's real. All of this is real.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 60 years old doing the same stuff I was able to do when I was 30. And my body, although my skin is getting crepey and I'm not as cute anymore, my body looks pretty much the same.
And it's just insane that our government and the people are preaching the standard American diet, and people are just getting fatter and fatter. And sugar and carbs are, I think it's at this point, it's pretty obvious that they can't be good for you. And then the other thing that you opened my eyes to is the seed oils, which I always thought, oh, it's vegetable oil made from vegetables, it can't be bad for you.
Yeah.
And start listening to your podcast. And I was wondering how you went down that rabbit hole and how you figured out those are so bad for your heart.
That was a long road. I would tell people, look, I don't feel the same. I can tell how I feel, right? I'm always monitoring how I feel. And sometimes I would feel crappy and it was like, what did I have today? What was that? And it was always after I went to not the best restaurant, but all restaurants use seed oils, right? Because you got to go as cheap as you can, even at the finest restaurants. And I said, what did I have today? And it was usually after a restaurant run. It's like, man, I never really feel good. And then I started talking to people. It's like, yeah, we use this stuff called Whirl, which is like a butter, the fake butter that you don't have to refrigerate and that stuff. And it's all made out of crappy oils. And towards the beginning, Kate Shanahan started coming on my show back when we first started it 2,300 episodes ago. Yep. And she started talking about these seed oils, not so much on the air, but off the air. She would talk more about it. And say, she keeps bringing this up. And I'd go and look into it and talk to a few people. And they're like, yeah, they're not as good. It's an industrial oil. Basically seed oils are really no different than sewing machine oil. I'm not being funny. It's the same thing. It's a chemical.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute. They used to tell us that we need to drink more vegetable oil, and we can enjoy seed oils like Udo's oil. Drink an ounce a day and all this stuff. And all of that. It's like, oh yeah, it's and when you start looking into how the stuff is manufactured and processed and everything else, it's horrible. It's horrible.
And so, they say that like you need to use it for its cooking properties. And I found that to be totally false. I've just tried using olive oil wherever they say vegetable oil, and haven't found anything that I can't cook.
Well, there's another one of those I call them internet wives' tales where but olive oil has a very low smoke point. No, it doesn't. That's created by the seed oil companies. They'll say, coconut oil is very low, smoke point. No different. These oils are good for you. right? But they made up this lie that it's horrible for you.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't work as well. None of that is true. None of it.
Well, the other thing that just blows my mind when I'm talking to people these days is the fear. They still fear saturated fat. They fear red meat. I was talking to someone who was like, "Oh, let's go get some barbecue," and they're like, "Oh, I don't want a heart attack," type thing. And I don't know. Do you still see that with like your new consults that people are still hesitant?
Oh yeah, you hear it all the time, and it's going to take forever for that to change. They're still saying keto diets are bad, low carb diets are bad, paleo diets are bad, NSNG is bad. And when you say, well, why is it bad? They'll say, well, saturated fat. And I've had some medical doctors, they'll say, well, coconut oil is bad. And I'll say, why? And they'll say, well, cholesterol. And I'll say, really? Yeah. Saturated fat. And it's like, well, you realize there is no truth in what you just said, guy with a medical degree. And they'll go, no, it's saturated fat. It causes high cholesterol. It's like, are you serious? They gave you a degree, right? And you have a degree from an accredited university. The only time you're going to have any kind of cholesterol is in animal protein, meat, milk, eggs, and what have you. And by the way, that's not bad for you either. Medical doctor who's going to now say cholesterol is bad, because cholesterol you need for every cell in your body to perform correctly. You need cholesterol. But somehow we've bastardized cholesterol. So they just make up stuff as they go. Well, saturated fat is going to clog your arteries. Well, I thought you said it was cholesterol. Yeah, that and saturated fat. Okay, now that's 2 lies. How many more lies do you want to go through? There was a head, I'm not going to say the hospital because I'm going to out the person, but I was at a dinner party not long ago with the head of cardiology from a big hospital. This is the head of cardiology. And he was explaining to me how I'm so wrong about everything. And he was using his, well, I'm a doctor and you're not, with me, trying to, show off at this party. So I said to him, I said, okay, so I said, you operate on hearts. He goes, yeah. I said, plumber or electrician? He goes, plumber, meaning he clears out arteries. I said, great. What are you pulling out of those arteries? He goes, well, plaque. I said, great. So we agree that plaque is in the arteries. Is plaque a byproduct of cholesterol? He said, no. I said, so why are you blaming cholesterol? And he didn't have an answer for me. I busted this guy at a dinner party, and everyone else was looking at him going, you're not going to answer his question? And he goes, it's bad for you. It's just all bad for you. That was his answer. He didn't have an answer. And these people are caregivers. Aren't you at least curious? There's other stuff out there. Aren't you at least curious?
Do you think it's the bias from where all the funding comes from and all the research studies that just overwhelms all the doctors, even though they might not have the bad intent? But if all the studies are getting funded by these K-logs or seed oil companies or grain companies that they want to see a certain outcome, that there's that inherent bias to make that outcome happen?
Well, yeah, they look at that. Most doctors now work for bigger organizations. Those organizations are co-opted by, politics and big food, right? So just so your audience will think, well, maybe they already think I need a tinfoil hat, but let me take it a step further. So big food says, hey, AHA, American Heart Association, we're going to give you a lot of money, right? Hey, American Diabetes Association, we're going to give you a lot of money. Okay. All right. Now you guys go do studies. Now we're going to fund those studies for you, but we need you to squint when those outcomes come out. Right. And we need you to say that eating sugar is not bad. The American Diabetes Association, the thing that causes type 2 diabetes, is still telling people that eating sugar is not bad for you. That is a complete lie. My grandmother knew that sugar could give you type 2 diabetes. My grandmother, a woman from Italy who barely spoke English, knew that. How is it that the ADA, the American Diabetes Association, will say exactly the opposite? I can make the same argument with the AHA, the American Heart Association. So the money comes from big food. Everyone's lining their pockets. And then doctors look at that and go, well, the American Heart Association says this. And then the hospitals they work for says, look, we'll pay for your malpractice insurance, but you need to say this. And if anyone dies of a heart attack, we'll back you up. Right? So everybody's just running scared. Very few doctors are willing to tell the truth, even if they know the truth, because they're being fed a line of bullshit. No, they're not God. And, we think doctors are God. They can save your life, and they can. A doctor saved my life, right? I get that. But not all doctors are equal, right? Only one doctor finishes at the top of his class every year. One doctor. The rest of them are just doctors who don't give a shit.
What do you think about those doctors that, like the guy that said an egg can cause diabetes and not sugar? Like, he can say that to the world and still practice and not like have any sort of consequence whatsoever.
I'm befuddled. Tim Noakes got in trouble for one tweet telling a mother that she can wean her kid off the teat and feed it vegetables and meat. And there were 2 trials in South Africa. Millions of dollars of taxpayers' money went into trying to defeat Tim Noakes, and they couldn't beat him. All the money and the government couldn't beat him based on a tweet. The same thing happened to Gary Fettke over in Tasmania.
Yeah.
And, I put that in my first movie, Fat, a Documentary. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And they literally took his license away because, just to let your audience know, he was an orthopedist who was chopping limbs off of people because, from type 2 diabetes, you get to a part with the neuropathy and everything, they got to chop a limb off. And he figured out, hey, if you just cut sugar out, we can reverse the neuropathy and you can save your limb. And the government came after him and said, hey, pal, you get to cutting. Your job is not to heal people. You start cutting their limbs off and stop this crap. Well, first do no harm, right? So he kept doing it. They took his license away. Now, when we did the movie, he still didn't have his license, right? But everyone knew that he was going to be featured in a movie, and the country of Tasmania somehow miraculously came around, and we put it at the end of the movie. Since this movie was being made, they miraculously gave him his license back. Right?
That's insane, because you could do the chopping off after you tried that. At least let them try the first one. Like, you can't go back, you can't sew back on your arm or leg. So just this stupidity just is baffling.
Yeah, the truth is way stranger than fiction in this case, and in all of these cases. Yet, going back to the egg, the guy who said that was Michael Greger, and I brought that up to Robert Lustig on my show. I said, "Hey, Michael Greger." He goes, "He didn't really say that, did he?" I went, "Yeah, he's saying that if you ate 1 egg a week, you can get type 2 diabetes." There's not even an inkling of truth in that. But these vegan doctors just have carte blanche. They can lie all they want, do whatever they want, carte blanche. And so there you have it, right?
Jeez. Well, Vinny, I truly appreciate your time. I think this is very important information, and everyone needs to read your material, listen to your podcast, whatever their favorite form of content is. You have it. You're super receptive on Twitter. I remember I asked you how to peel hard-boiled eggs because I was struggling, and you retweeted it, and I got just a hard-boiled egg army coming at me on Twitter, and it helped a ton. So I just want to thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Mike. And if you ever want me back, you probably don't. But if you do, I'm always available, man. I really appreciate it.
I would always, I love talking to you every day. You're definitely super influential and keep me on the straight and narrow. So everyone needs to check out VinnieTortorich.com. That's with an IE, not a wimpy Y. You can see the consults, ebooks, all the documentaries there. Podcast is titled Fitness Confidential, just like the book. Check out Pure Vitamin Club, Pure Coffee Club, and NSNG Foods. Thank you, Vinnie.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Mike White Podcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Mike White Pod, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Y'all have a great day.